Welcome to the High Performance Man podcast. I am your host, John Fayocavitz. On this show, I interview successful men who have built impressive careers and businesses, founders, CEOs, and senior leaders, and professionals who have operated at a high level for years. We talk about what actually made them successful. So the goal is simple, to learn directly from men who have done it so we can apply those insights into our own careers, businesses, and lives and continue raising our own standard of performance. Our show is brought to you by the Prime Performance Method. The Prime Performance Method is designed specifically for high-performing men who have achieved success in their careers but feel like their body and energy have taken a hit along the way. We help busy professional men regain strength, lose weight, and feel younger within 8 weeks without long workouts, extreme dieting, or disrupting their demanding schedule. If you are a high-performing man who wants to feel as strong and energized as you are successful, message me, John Fayocavitz, on LinkedIn. On today's show, we have Arun Krishnan, who is the managing director for Accenture, where he helps clients transform their business. Welcome, Arun, and thank you very much for coming.
Hey, John, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So welcome. Okay, let's get started. Arun, what is the most important lesson you've learned so far that has helped you become successful in your business?
John, I think the single most mindset that has helped me be successful and that I've seen many on the people that I work with be successful is growth mindset, right? Growth mindset is basically believing that any skill in life can be acquired and you can grow any talent by consistent application of hard work and by learning from failure and continuing to show up with grit, right? That has been the single most biggest unlock for me, John, in my life. And and when I did this earlier in my life and earlier in my career, I didn't know the name that this was called growth mindset. Growth mindset was a name that's coined by this Stanford professor called Susan Carol Dweck, and she wrote a very compelling book about this. What I thought in my life was I was just a hard worker, right? I was just the guy who would keep showing up and putting in the effort and putting in the time at whatever I needed to do. And much later in my life is when I learned that that's called growth mindset. And the difference there, John, was that for me, when I saw somebody who was naturally good at something, they had a God-given gift, or by birth they were a certain way. I felt earlier in my life, I felt it was a little bit limiting, right? In a sense that, hey, I don't have that skill. But then over a period of time, I learned that, hey, I can learn this and I can improve my tactics, and by application of effort, I can get better. So that was the huge thing for me to say, I can pick up anything that I want, whether it's negotiation, whether it's public speaking, whether it is leadership. So that was the biggest unlock for me, John. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, yes. When you say that, I guess it's like not knowing all the answers. You know what I mean? You got to be able to grow in all aspects of your life. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you think you know the answers and you're not always educating yourself and you're not always growing in some shape or form, you're stagnant.
100%.
And I think at one point you're going to get passed by.
Yep. And it's saying that, hey, it's okay to not know the answers.
Yes.
But you have the skills in you to go learn and figure out the answers. I think it's kind of that wayfinding confidence, if you will. And
right.
That's a huge unlock for me.
And I think it just goes into my next question, which is coincidental, is what do you think hinders a lot of men today from reaching their potential? And I think, I'll let you answer what you think, but
I want to hear your perspective.
It goes along with ego. Okay, like you said, if I think I know all the answers, that's going to hinder me from reaching my full potential. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's exactly what you're saying.
I resonate with that so much, because the best leaders that I've seen, John, are the people who are humble enough to say, hey, I may not have all the answers. Let me seek and learn. Let me listen, whether it's I'm listening to my customers or whether I'm listening to my employees. Let me learn from them and then use that to inform what I'm going to do. I think those are the companies, those are the leaders who are the most successful. And I think to your point, the one thing that I feel today, and I'm curious to get your perspective, is we're missing an element, or we as a society could be doing better when we take ownership. When we take
Yes,
ownership to say, hey, I'm I'm here to do this job, and I'm going to do this to my best of my ability. I think that changes, that changes every single aspect of life in my mind when everybody shows up with
exactly.
ownership mindset.
And just to give you what you just said, ownership,
Yeah.
and it goes back. I just had a game yesterday, okay, in lacrosse,
Okay.
and we had there was a play that one of our kids should have been on a certain spot, but and I told he doesn't. They don't own it today. The kids make excuses of all sorts of things, and it drives me crazy.
And that's true in so many places, right? A lot of people, especially young people, when they show up, or not even young people to that matter, I think it's across the spectrum. If you look at it, John, I think people are fatigued, right? People feel like, hey, this is just a job, it's just a way for a paycheck for me. And I'm talking about a lot of this in the sense of, business domain. That's where I operate the most. But I think
Yeah,
it's true in public sector. If you go to the government, or if you go to healthcare, I think when people operate with a sense of this is just a job to a paycheck, versus when people operate with the mindset of this is a ownership and they show up differently, I think the people interacting with them feel that impact differently, right?
right.
And it's an improved experience, and there is an improved sense of human connection in that experience. I think
Yep.
that is where I would like to see more of our people do.
Yes, I agree. How many years have you been with Accenture?
I've been at Accenture this August. I'll be coming up on 21 years.
Wow.
Yes, 21 years. And consulting, John, has been a fun industry because, I kind of think of ourselves as doctors for businesses, because we get in and say, hey, my customer says, hey, I'm doing well on these four things, but I need to get better at this one thing, which is not very different from how you coach people, right?
Right. Yep.
So, and then they say, okay, hey, here's a performance plan for you, customer. Maybe you lose a little bit of weight, right? Lose a little bit of
Yep.
fat, and go take this, go do this meditation, or go do this workout, right? It's the same thing for business. We give them some capabilities to boost their performance, and oftentimes today in today's world, it's driven by technology. So it's been a fun career. Along my career, I've had to, I've worked for great companies like Sony, Pepsi, you know, um, Sony, Pepsi, Boeing, and Amazon, and you get to see kind of the front row. You get to have a front row seat for how these companies perform, how their businesses work, how their leaders think, and I've been very fortunate to kind of have a front row seat for that experience.
That's awesome. Awesome, Arun. Okay. All right. Next one. For the most men on the road to business or professional success, other areas of your life get sacrificed. What's been one of the areas of your life that has suffered, if there has been, and what have you done to make it successful now?
I think that's such a wonderful question, and a very insightful question on that, right? There's always a trade-off in life, and it changes from different parts of life. I have an 8-year-old son now, so now I have to manage time with my partner, with my wife, and with my son, and I have to do justice to my work as well. So finding that time balance has been hard, and the one thing that often takes a hit is your physical health, right? Physical health often takes a backseat. It's the easiest thing, and in today's day and age, John, I would also add mental health to that, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people struggle with anxiety. I see that in some of my colleagues. People take all sorts of external help to deal with anxiety. So those are two places that where I have personally found myself struggling in my life. And I think the three things that consistently help me perform better in all aspects of my life is meditation. I think it helps me calms my mind. Uh, Physical exercise, and even 20 minutes of cardio, your endorphins going. Your outlook to life changes. Your outlook
Right.
to the same problem before you walked into the gym, when you walk out of the gym, is different.
Right.
um, and then the third thing that has helped me a lot, John, is journaling has helped me a lot. Oftentimes I'm swimming in thoughts, and it helps me get them out on a piece of paper, and it takes the load off my head. And because it's a piece of paper, and I'm able to get more clarity on it. So those are the three things that's helped me.
Okay. And I'm sure you've seen it since you've been in the business for 21 years. You've seen it adapt or change as you gotten to the point you're at today.
100%.
Things didn't happen when you were, what age were you then when you first 21 years ago? What?
Yeah, 20? I was 21. Yeah, I was 21 years.
And then today, because responsibilities change.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And that's where I think, not to plug you in your own show, but I think what you're doing is so important because you're bringing in a physical health aspect along with mental discipline, along with performance. And I love that mission about you. So when you reached out to connect, I looked into your profile and that was very attractive to me. So I wish you all the best in your mission.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, you mentioned meditation, okay? And I'm always curious, and Mike, again, personally, because during the podcast that I've been going over with men, do you have a certain routine that you do in the mornings or at night, or what? I mean, is there something that you sit down and said, these are non-negotiables? I got to do this. I mean,
yeah. Well, I think because you spoke about meditation, the most easiest meditation technique that I find that I can use anywhere I'm in is box breathing. So where you take in for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, and you release for 4 seconds. That is an immediate anxiety resolver. And it's like my headache pill. The moment I feel anxious, I try to sit down for a few minutes, and even a minute's worth of just doing that just calms my nerves, John. I do that before I go into stressful negotiations. Yeah. I do that before, if I'm finding myself overwhelmed with the stress of day-to-day life. So that's my go-to practice. I want to say I'm perfect. I wake up at 5 o'clock and I do it every day. It's not the case. I do it most days, and I do it most often when I need it. And having that tool in my toolbox helps me a lot.
Well, that's good. Good to hear. Well, what that breathing does is it trains our nervous system, okay, to calm down, because everything comes from, everything comes from the brain, okay? And if we can calm our brain down from running and racing, okay, then everything else it goes in hand, okay?
Yeah, well, I'm curious, is this something that you teach to your athletes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because a lot of these kids, they're 14 years old, 15 years old. And when game time comes and they get anxiety and get nervous and they can't perform the way that they did in practice. So, I've seen it over and over that they practice well, but when they get into games, they clam up and they just not perform the same way. And it's because they're nervous and their heart rate's racing and their mind is saying, I can't screw up. I can't do this. Or, you know what I mean? It's one of those things. So we got to calm the mind down.
Well, that's the awesomeness of a coach, right? Because as you're explaining this to me, John, I'm reminded of, when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, there was a public speaking contest. It was a public debate contest. I had spent like weeks preparing for the debate. I had a beautiful debate speech to go with. But when it was time to perform, when it's up on the stage, my words dried up. It was like a complete blackout. I didn't have and my mom was there. She had taken me to perform here. I'm failing in front of a bunch of strangers. I'm failing in front of my mom. It was a difficult moment as a 12, 13-year-old. I was quiet the entire day reflecting on why did I fail. But that was such an informative lesson because today I feel like, 30 years later, same person, I have some tools to manage with stress and I can go up and give a decent speech and not completely black out.
Right. Well, the next question we might have answered already, but you might have found another. Where do you find yourself at peace? Is meditation that spot?
Meditation, journaling, and swimming, or anytime I'm doing water activities, I find myself being get to a calmer state. So those are kind of my hacks, if you will. Yeah. But I live in Seattle. There's not swimming pools everywhere here. It's like it rained here if you've not heard the news. So
okay, here's my question. Since you're from Seattle, I hear a lot because I'm in the Northeast or whatever we are today. Yeah. They say it rains a lot there. Is that true?
That's what we say to keep all the people out. That's what we. It's like that's what we say, so that it's beautiful out here.
Is it?
And if you could look out here, I'm surrounded by pine trees. There's so much abundant nature here. So anybody who's not visited the Pacific Northwest, I'll be an ambassador and say, hey, come here. And if you're worried about the rain, come in summer. It
Yeah.
is one of the most beautiful places to visit, and
Well,
the air just feels cleaner. The air feels cleaner.
everything. Well, and you also have the Super Bowl champs.
We do have the Super Bowl champs. Yes, sir. We do. We do.
So
That
that's
was an
great.
exciting win. Yes,
Good.
indeed.
All right. Last question. If you were to give one piece of advice to other men that are on their journey to achieving success, that they're just starting out, what would that be?
This is something that's very personal to me. So, John, I'll say that there is a crisis of leadership in America right now, in the world right now. Last year, US News did a survey, and 77% of Americans said that they don't trust leaders around them, whether it's in business, whether it's in public sector. And that is 3 out of 4 Americans that don't believe that there are good leaders around them. So somebody who's starting out, and John, you will probably resonate with this, leadership is a choice.
Yeah.
You can choose to show up as a leader. You can choose to show up and care. And there's multiple facets of the leadership. Being curious is a start, right? Knowing that there's a scarcity of leaders, and you trying to fill that vacuum wherever you are. And you can be in a small shop. You can be in a team of 2 people, 3 people. You may be the solo entrepreneur, doesn't matter. When you choose to show up as a leader, the people around you are going to look at you differently, and you're going to react to it differently. And it's going to make the world a better place. It's going to make wherever you are a better place.
Right.
And the world needs more leaders. It's very clear.
Yep.
So that would probably be my advice. I can probably go and speak about this for an hour, about what the different aspects of the leadership. Maybe we'll reserve that when your podcast has hit 1 million subscribers. We'll come back and say, hey, I remember speaking to Arun. So we'll do that when you get there. But for now, I'll say that as in, leadership is a choice. We can all choose to show up as leaders in whatever we do, whether it's in home, whether it's at work, whether it's in the community. I think let's go show up as leaders, and the world needs more of them.
Right. And you think that a lot of the men today, or even the younger generation that you were talking about, don't think that they can be good leaders, or don't want to put the effort in to be good leaders? Or where do you think you stand on that?
Well, I think it's interesting you should ask this question. At least in my line of work and the people that I interact with more, people get promoted to their jobs. They get promoted to their jobs and they get more senior titles, but nobody really sits them down and says what it means to be a leader, like what it means to be a leader, what are the different aspects of a leader, and have that coaching, which is where, I keep going back to your coaching program and coaching as in general. It takes a leader to go and say, hey, you've got this new job, buddy. Here's all the responsibilities of this job, and here's what good looks like. And once that unlock happens, most rational people, they start working differently. When they see themselves differently, they don't see themselves as a manager, but they see themselves as a leader. They start operating differently.
Yeah. And see, what you said in my field, in my coaching, a lot of the younger kids think it's all about vocal. Okay. It's like, who's the loudest kid? Like, that's not it. I'm trying to teach them that that's not what leaders, it's not the loudest one in the room. It's, you lead in various ways. You lead by example. Okay. Is what I'm looking for in an athlete, okay, or in anything, is it's behind the scenes leadership.
That's right. How do you pull the team?
Right.
How do you make the team work? And how do you go after the goal? You spoke about ego earlier in the call. How do you put your ego aside and do what is right for the overall group's objective? And that requires self-sacrifice. It requires humility. It requires less ego on your part, right? And it requires advocacy on your part. So you're spot on, John. There's so many dimensions of leadership. And while communication may be one of them, that's not the only aspect.
That's not the only one. Well, Arun, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, the conversation and the insights that you have given our audience is awesome. Okay. And I want to thank you. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is brought to you by the Prime Performance Method, where I help people, high-performing men, rebuild their strength, energy, and confidence without sacrificing their careers. If you feel as strong and ready in your body as you are successful, please message me, John Fayocavitz. Until the next episode, perform strong in all areas of your life.